We'll very, very quickly move on to our next session, which is how can the open street empower women and lead to a more equitable street design. Leading this session is Anne Osley. Anne, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Take it away.
My name is Anna, and I work with WRI Africa, based in the Kampala, Uganda office. I'm an urban planner and an architect by training, so I work in the area of urban design. And we're holding this session. The idea is that it's a little bit fun and interactive. And we've assembled a great group of street designers, street policymakers, and activists. So I'm delighted to have the panel here today. The reason we're doing this is because public spaces, including streets, are often the heartbeat of a community, and ensuring their safety and inclusion for all urban residents is really important. This is a photo of the central business district in Kampala, Uganda, where I live. And as we all know here today, I think we're preaching to the choir in that cities don't often take into account needs like safety and security, including, for females, children, and persons with disabilities when planning our streets. So because a lot of these needs are disproportionately borne by females who are the caretakers of children and elders, and they travel through the city during peak and off-peak hours for working, shopping, and accessing services, thinking about what types of spaces women need to use the street well and conveniently, and to be safe is really important. It's something we have to do as professionals and as city officials. In this session, we're going to explore what qualities of street design both engage and empower women. And so we'll look at examples of open streets and public space initiatives in different African cities to understand how we can do this better in our cities. And we also wanted to have a mini design charrette with our expert panelists, so that we have a street that's currently under redesign in Kampala, and we're going to do a brainstorm session on how to improve that. So with that, I'll just briefly introduce our panelists, and then I'm going to hand it over to each of them to say a few words about what they do and some of the lessons they're learning. So we have Judy Bala, who's a city planner in Kisumu in Kenya. And she's been a real driving force behind Kisumu's recent transport and street design improvements. They've recently published a sustainable mobility plan, which Judy was a big part of, and have been making a lot of physical improvements to non-motorized transit infrastructure. And she is responsible for community outreach and getting input on transport plans and policies, including street design. So she has a lot of experience. Then we have Penina Ndegwa, and she is also based in Nairobi, Kenya, and she's a coordinator for the Share the Road program, which is a UNEP program. Share the Road helps cities commit to financing NMT infrastructure, and also she's responsible for ensuring vulnerable groups are represented in such efforts. And this takes place across 3 different countries within Africa. And Penina also, she has a quote, which I love. I saw it on your website, Penina. It says, "If a city is great for a 3-year-old, it's great for everyone." So she also has founded an NGO that works to create child-friendly cities in Kenya and other places. And then our third speaker is going to be Shirley. And Shirley works with a really wonderful organization called Conconi Design Initiative, based in Nairobi, KDI for short, and they're a nonprofit design initiative that works with community organizations, and they do advocacy, research, planning, and built works. She's a landscape architect. And then last but not least, we have Samuel. And Seble is campaign lead for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. That is a mouthful, but basically their goal is to end fossil fuel expansion and work towards equitable phasing out of fossil fuels globally. So that's a tall order. But Seble also, and I think maybe most famously, is the co-founder of Open Streets Addis, and has also started an organization called You Can Cycle. That's the English name, and she can tell us the Amharic, which teaches women and girls how to cycle. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Judy, and you can share your screen or just turn on your video, and tell us a little bit about what you do.
All right, as has been introduced by Anna, my name is Judy Bala. I'm a city planner at the City of Kisumu, working with the county government of Kisumu. Currently implementing a lot of sustainable transport initiative, part of which is the non-motorized transport corridor. The first phase that we implemented was about 2 kilometers, and the second one is 8 kilometers. The components of the non-motorized transport include the pedestrian walkway, the green strip, we have the cycling lane, yes, among others. Now, what informed this was the outcome of the Kisumu Mobility Plan research or survey, if you may call it, that it revealed that 53% of Kisumu residents walk every day. And so that means that a greater population of the residents of Kisumu need to be taken care of, yet they've been ignored for a very long time. And so the Kisumu, with support of ITDP, Ford Foundation, they developed a policy, a transport policy. It's an all-encompassing sustainable transport policy, really, that guides the transport, the mobility of the city. It also proposes or recommends a number of initiatives that would see us realizing a sustainable mobility within the city. Now, how did I become an activist of sustainable mobility or the initiative? Now, while going through the policy document, I realized that a lot of the recommendations are capital intensive. It means that we'll need to mobilize for funds for us to reach out to people to really see this document being implemented to the latter. But then I realized there's one initiative that does not necessarily need a lot of money. I just need to mobilize people around it and have us going. So one of those was having car-free days. Car-free days means that we would be blocking a number of streets for motorized transportation and have people reclaim the streets as a public space. And so then I reached out to partners and businesses to help us put this together. And so we had our car-free day in December 2021. That really was to sensitize the public on the already developed non-motorized transport corridor. How do we use it? So a lot of people were seeing, a lot of residents of Kisumu were seeing the county developing this transport infrastructure, but they were not really sensitized on how do we use this or why do we really need this in our city. I like to make reference in you feel pain in your body, but you do not realize that you're sick until you go to the doctor and you get a diagnosis. So while a lot of Kisumu residents were walking, they really did not understand that they needed a transport infrastructure that supports the walking. So then when the city implemented it, still they did not understand, why do we need this? And they kept questioning, why do we need, we call them, down here we call them cabro. They kept questioning, why do we need cabro? While this, the NMT corridor was being implemented, a number of people were displaced from their businesses. Those were street vendors. So the street vendors, most of them were women who would be selling goods that mostly are perishable or food, vending food that they will be supplying to offices within the CBD. And so a number of them were displaced. And so you can imagine how they felt that we are being displaced to put up this infrastructure that we really do not understand how to use. So then the Car-Free Day was meant for that. The first Car-Free Day was meant to sensitize people. Why do we really need this NMT? So then who did we invite to the Car-Free Day? Of course, we blocked about 4 streets from access of motorist transportation, and we had the public claim the space. We had a placemaking event, we had bicycle riding, we have the skating. We also invited business communities to come and showcase. And we were also trying to see if they can use this shared business, or on occasion we can open these streets for street vending. While I acknowledge that this still is quite a journey for us to reach there, even with authorities, but we realize that it is something that we can do. We can easily do. We just need to keep mobilize people around this initiative. We had another Car-Free Day this year on 26th of November, and this year's theme was to promote road safety and to promote community, or rather local solutions to sustainable transportation. So then we were inviting communities to give solutions, their own solutions. How do you think we can make transport sustainable without really investing a lot of money and resources? Again, communities came about. We had the borders, the non-motorized borders. We gave them reflectors, the safety reflectors, so that they are included, and also they are part of the providing of local solutions to transportation, because that is what they can afford at the local level without transiting to the motorized border. Now, what are the lessons that I learned? First lesson was that a lot of these policies that we come up with, a lot of them risk being put on shelves and gathering dust. So what I learned big time is that when we took out an initiative from this transport mobility and highlighted it in the form of a Car-Free Day, then it got people looking for the document, and they interacted with the document. And a lot of government agencies, as recommended in the policy document, they started interacting with the document. They kept asking, how can I get this document that is making you block our roads from accessing it? So then some of those initiatives have made, I'm glad to report that have made it to the CIDP. That is the document that informs what government can finance every financial year. And other partners have started looking into the document and seeing where can we invest. Investors have come forward to look at the document, and they're asking questions. We've interacted, we've had meetings, and they're asking questions. How can we implement this? So I'm glad some of these outcomes some of these initiatives have come out of made outcomes that make people to interact with policy documents outside government, government offices. Now, another thing we realize that regardless of having non-motorized transport, a lot of women still face safety in mobility daily. Street vending is still invading the non-motorized transport, but most of them still are women. So then how do we solve this? The government has had an initiative of building a market that is close by the road, so that they are, instead of using the NMT corridor, they're able to have a market that people can easily access, because these are people that target the commuters, people who are driving by, people who are walking by the roads. The street vendors target these people. So then the government has had a market, a Uhuru business market, that would take care of these people, the street vendors, so they're safe. As opposed to vending their wares on the street, they can now vend at a proper market, designated market. They have spaces, and it's safe, and no vehicles are going, passing by there, and these women are safe, really. So
Judy, I just wanted to let you know that we should shift to the next panelist, but you'll have a chance to give more comments when we get to the design session, okay?
sure.
Okay, thank you. That you have a wealth of experience, and we are glad that you're here to share it. And thank you for taking the time. All right, so the Penina and Degwa, you can turn on your video and share your screen if you'd like.
So my name is Penina Ndegwa. I'm the program coordinator for Share the Road program at United Nations Environment. And we are so glad to be here today, to be invited by Flone Initiative to talk about some of the initiatives that Share the Road program does in promoting women and open street development across Africa. So just a brief background on what the Share the Road program does. We mostly support governments, national and city governments, in development of policies that really promote active mobility, that is walking and cycling. And one of the things that we also do is also we do a lot of advocacy, because for a very long time we are all aware that there has been walking and cycling has been neglected, and so we really spearhead government to really prioritize investment in walking and cycling across cities across the world. And we also do a lot of capacity building, whereby we convene city leaders, ranging from champions, thematic groups, government officials, or people in decision-making capacity, to just equip them with knowledge and skills that they need for to get them in developing for walking and cycling, particularly for women across the cities in the world. And maybe highlighting some of a few recent initiatives, some of the policy activities that we are currently undertaking. I think Judy has really highlighted on the benefit of Kisumu Sustainable Mobility Plan. That's actually a project I happened to really work on in my previous engagements. And for sure, I've seen firsthand what policy can do in terms of guiding the city or setting precedents in how cities need to be designed. And so at UNEP, we do support a lot in policies. And one of our recent policies that we are currently working on is known as Pan-African Action Plan for Active Mobility, which is an African-wide policy aimed at ensuring that government commit to investing in walking and cycling across Africa. And just to highlight, we have done a research and found out that only 35% in Africa, we have over 70% of people who walk every day to access daily services for at least 56 minutes every day. And for that reason, again, majority are mostly women, because again, when it comes to car ownership or mobility, most of the time, the women are not prioritized. It's always like the husband owns the car before the man. And so women, most of the time, really rely on walking and cycling. And so because they highly depend on walking and cycling, they're not only that 5% of the population in Africa that walk and cycle is supported by policy. So we know through this PAPAM, or what we are calling the Pan-African Action Plan for Active Mobility, we are going to increase governments across Africa to commit to implementing walking and cycling policies for the residents. And maybe just to highlight one of the key aspects, how PAPAM is going to work, we, other than just developing a policy, we are coming up with commitments whereby we are going to push government or bring government on board to really sign up or to commit into investing in walking and cycling. And one of the key commitments that we are still developing is actually on gender. How do we actually ensure that women are provided for, their mobility needs are met in terms of when they are implementing active mobility? And of course, finally, not finally, but another great commitment that you are developing currently is also on financing, because at the end of the day, we've seen less prioritization of active mobility for walking and cycling in the city. I'll give an example for Nairobi. We've just done the expressway, which is one of the most expensive highways across the world. But then what we've learned is that they have neglected well, as a motorist, it's pretty efficient. But then as a pedestrian or as a cyclist, you're neglected. And now again, considering that majority of the people who will actually walk and cycle are women, then that means their needs are not articulated. And maybe now going back to how women travel, and really maybe what also got me into this space for advocating for open streets on equitable designs for women, is that women travel differently, especially in Africa. We are the caregivers. We are the people moving around with the babies. We are the people helping our family members access services that they may not be able to access. Of course, we are also working to support our families. We are also, just doing other errands like any other person, like the men would do. But now most of the trips, because of other responsibilities, our trips are shorter, and short trips, frequent trips, sometimes off peak, when not necessarily off peak, because again our work, majority of the women and how they work, they're able to just make trips off peak, when unlike the men who will either travel from work to home, mostly in employed opportunities. But for women, they're either running a few businesses here and there, again supporting the families. For that reason, that's why they end up just traveling off peak. And if you think about their needs, what do women need when they're traveling? A woman needs a place they can comfortably cross the road, for example, because they're always carrying loads. And I've seen a lot of investment or prioritization again in investment in footbridges. And some of the women, especially like the mama bogas, who are maybe carrying goods from the market, they have to go take them to their shops for selling. They are carrying heavy goods, and that woman is expected to go up the stairs, cross a road, over the footbridge to cross the other side, and it's extremely inconveniencing. Think about again a mother traveling with a child. Is it actually comfortable to carry a child, or even be accompanied by more than one child when you're accessing services across the city? My experience is that it has been extremely uncomfortable. There is no provision at all for those facilities. Another thing is that you will find that women will not use a street that is dirty or poorly lit. Yeah, because first of all, there's an aspect of insecurity that comes with dark streets or poorly lit streets. So women, again, I actually like to say, other than just children being the indicator species of cities, even women are. If you don't see a woman in a street, that should tell you that that street is not safe, that street is not comfortable and convenient. So as we invest in our city, we need to make sure that women's needs are provided for. We need to make sure that the streets are well lit, they are well connected, they have quality and comfortable walkways. They are able to meet all their needs, whether they are using a woman using a stroller. And when a woman is able to use a stroller, that means somebody using a wheelchair can comfortably navigate across the street by themselves. And again, ensuring that they can be able to travel any other time, both in the early morning, because the streets are well lit, they are well cleaned, we don't have a lot of trash. And again, in terms of connectivity, ensuring that one footpath is connected to the other footpath, and not having open drainage where again they have to jump over. And again, even the way we dress, we cannot be able to, jump on a very wide open drain. So those are some of the things that I would like to highlight, and I'm looking forward to the design session where we incorporate some of those things. And again, streets just do not only need to meet the aspect of mobility, like moving from one point to another. They also need to be places where women can hang out. Let's meet friends or wait for another person, or just have a moment to sit down, relax on the street, and just be able to feed a baby or change them. So we definitely need to design our street, not just for mobility, but again, we provide some benches where they can sit down and relax and tend to a young baby or an elderly person they're traveling with. And those are the things that actually bring more women to the streets. And finally, now going back to even promoting of policies, is that I mentioned that UNEP is really working hard to make sure that we equip champions or stakeholders or practitioners in urban mobility with the skills that they need to be able to design for some of these streets for the women and the general population. And one of the programs that you also have at UNEP is known as African Network for Walking and Cycling, which is really it's a group convened by UNEP and Walk 21. And what we do there is that we convene champions and we have organized them into different working groups, whether it's academia, whether it's cycling, research, and through that they're able to come together, get training, share knowledge and opportunities. That now for champions like Judy, who are spearheading her free days in their cities, they're able to meet with other champions across other cities in Africa, and they're able to share knowledge and experiences, which really help them leapfrog some of the challenges that they may experience when it comes to implementing some of those facilities. I'll end it there and looking forward to the other session on street design. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Panina. That was an excellent list of design strategies you gave. And I wanted to ask you, what % of the streets in Nairobi do you feel have the things that you listed?
Well, I think it depends. Honestly, we've not done like a proper audit. I may not be in touch may not have the proper statistics on the number of really good design streets that have been done. But I remember at some point participating in the development of Lupuli Avenue. And to be honest, right now it's back to the mess that it was before. At least they had tried to demonstrate what a good, beautiful street would look like, fully pedestrianized, with some benches for pedestrians to sit on. But right now, again, it has been encroached by vendors. But I do know for Kisumu. Kisumu is being my favorite street in Kenya. I know Kisumu is really great and they have done a lot of things right in terms of ensuring that the footpaths have proper effective width where you can comfortably walk together. They're making sure that there's safe crossings, actually tabletop crossings that are very comfortable, and they're doing away with the footbridges. They're also ensuring that there's provision of cycle tracks, which is really amazing. And they've actually provided even public toilets along the footpaths, which for me is really amazing because, again, think about women. During pregnancy especially, those women need to access toilets more frequently than they would in normal circumstances. Or at least maybe you need to change a baby before you board the public transport system. So,
Panina, you're breaking up a bit.
Having public toilets along the walking, the pedestrian zone is very important, and I've seen that being done in Kisumu. So I may not be able to define exactly, but I know people walking and cycling. I do know in the near future we are going to have really great streets. Thank you. Sorry for the network. Okay.
No problem. Thank you very much. You're giving a big compliment to Judy's work in Kisumu. Thanks a lot. Let's hand it over to Shirley. Shirley, if you'd like to share your screen or turn on your video, you're welcome.
So, hi everyone, I'm joining you this afternoon right before your lunch. I hope you're not too hungry. You can focus on these last minutes of what we have to share. So my name is Sabla Samuel. I'm Ethiopian Canadian. I'm a geographer and a climate justice campaigner. And Anna already did the intro. I work for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, but today I'm going to be talking about a nonprofit that I co-founded called Kutima, which is focused on urban sustainability. We work on sustainable mobility. We are co-founders of Mangad Lasso, which means streets for people in Amharic, and it's Ethiopia's open streets or car-free movement. And we recently launched Cycle to Challenge with the Igra Mangad cycle community, and it's a free women's bicycle training. And we also work on circular systems. We have a plastic-free Ethiopia campaign, and we also do arts and education and South-South exchange. So a bit of background about me. That's me on the left at one of the first Mangadlesa or car-free days in Addis Ababa in 2018. I lived for a few years in Latin America, which is where the whole open streets or car-free movement started in the 1970s. And I experienced this in Bogota, Colombia, and Quito, Ecuador. And I was really excited to kick off something similar in Addis Ababa, where I moved in 2016. And I hadn't before that been super interested in the city space. But after living in such a chaotic city like Addis Ababa, I focused a lot of my activism here. And on the right-hand side, maybe some of you in the room were also in this exchange, but Open Streets Cape Town organized an Open Streets Exchange for African Cities in 2018. And there I was able to meet a lot of the city officials from the transport space in Addis Ababa, who were also looking to create a car-free movement in Ethiopia. And so we came back to Addis Ababa and started organizing, created a really diverse collective to form what would become Mangadlesa, or Streets for People. So for those who have not been to Addis Ababa, this is a photo of Mascal Addababai, the main square in Addis Ababa. I took this photo a few years ago, so it's changed somewhat, but it's just basically, I wanted to tell you about the streets of the place where I live. Around 55% of people walk to move around the city, and around 30% rely on public transportation. Despite the fact that 85% of people do not own a private vehicle, surprise, surprise, the city is really designed for this car-owning minority. And so there's a lot of work from the transport space, from activists, et cetera, to really shift this model and think about what can our streets look like if they're genuinely reflecting the majority. And that's the whole idea behind Mangadlesa, is flipping the streets from this to this. And so these are different photos from Mangadlesa over the years. We use a decentralized model. On the last Sunday of every month, we take up between 15 and 20 kilometers of streets in 7 of the 10 sub-cities of Addis Ababa. We block them to cars and we open them to people to ride their bicycles, to walk, to skate, to play. And we want to democratize public space in this way and show what our streets can be when the majority is given space. And we also want this to influence urban design. So here's a few more photos from the Open Streets movement we have going on in Ethiopia. We want this basically to be a space for social connection in a society that's really stratifying economically. We want to reclaim the streets as public space for everyone. We want to encourage ecological sustainability, safe streets, and we want this to influence how we plan our city and making sure that non-motorized transport is really prioritized. And then I just want to talk about a little bit about my personal shift of how I moved through the city. We all saw with the pandemic this rise of pop-up NMT infrastructure to really move around the city in ways that didn't rely on motorized transportation. And across different African cities, we also saw that movement take place as well. For me personally, it caused a shift. I used to mainly move around in public transportation. And then once the pandemic started, I became really nervous to move around in public transportation for fear of getting COVID. And so I started riding my bicycle, which is normally what I do in most cities that I live, but was very fearful of doing this in Addis Ababa. And when doing so, I couldn't see any other Ethiopian women riding bicycles. I just know one other person, and she is a close friend. And this is not the reality in smaller Ethiopian cities. You see a much more diverse kind of cycling culture in Ethiopia's smaller cities, but this is not the case in Addis Ababa. So actually last month for the Africa Network for Walking and Cycling, which I'm happy was just mentioned, I interviewed different women in Lagos, in Cape Town, and Nairobi about what is their experience cycling in the cities that they live, and really what stops us from filling the streets and how can we change this reality. So I wanted to share a couple of the quotes that really stuck out for me. On the right is my friend Jaime learning to cycle in our cycle program, which I'll tell you about in a second. But these are the words of Juliet, who coordinates the Africa Network for Walking and Cycling. And she grew up in Nairobi in the 1980s. And she said, it was not acceptable for a girl to cycle. It was not the norm for a parent to buy you a bicycle. I remember my mom would always pull me away from the boys so that I didn't engage in what she termed as dangerous things, such as riding a bicycle. But the boys were allowed. And back then there was this notion that if you're a young girl, you're likely to break your virginity riding a bicycle, which I still don't understand where it was coming from. And I can share that in Ethiopia, that myth is also very present. And then this is from Lebo, who's in Cape Town, and who was the inaugural bicycle mayor for Cape Town. She said, there are gendered patriarchal views around the person for whom the bicycle is made. And that stereotypes about the bicycle as a man. And maybe that's subliminally linked to really wanting to constantly constrain the freedom of women's movement in society. Fundamentally, I think it's also linked to just not wanting us to move as freely and as far as a bicycle would allow. So getting all of this and also duration my own what our streets can look like together are our NGO Kutima with Equitable, which is a cycling community in Addis Ababa. We created Cycle Tchalish, which in Amharic the verbs are gendered. So Tchalish means you can, specifically for a woman. And so this program is basically a movement that we're collectively creating for women to fill the streets on their bicycles. And we've started this a couple months ago. And we're collaborating, like I said, Kutima, our NGO, with Equitable cycle community. And on one of the car-free spaces of Mangadlesa, we've organized 6 free weekly sessions from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sundays. We've had 17 women register. This is all word of mouth. We had to close the registration because it was overflowing. We now have 50 women registered for future cohorts. We developed a curriculum so they could learn, and the government also has this target that half of the riders will be women in 6 years' time. We've had challenges. Obviously, bicycles are very expensive and it's hard to find storage, but I think this movement is worth it despite all these challenges. The students in a mere month's time have been able to kind of learn how to ride a bicycle. They feel this freedom and pride in their accomplishments. They encourage each other. They want to become future trainers. They're riding outside of the actual programming that we have. They're buying their own bicycles and cycling places outside of this now. So just to close, I want to share a quote. This is one of the participants. We have Saron on the right, who learned how to ride a bicycle last month, and a quote from Olamide, who is the director of the Lagos Urban Development Initiative that I interviewed also for this story. She said, we see the bicycle as a tool for freedom, so women feel like they can take over street space that isn't always theirs and still feel safe in those spaces. So that's all I have. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Seble, very much. Quick question for you. What is your favorite African street that you've ever visited, like been on, and why?
I would say Kigali. I really love the streets there. They felt really spacious, and the city was really green, and it felt safe to move around. Although I don't remember the specific street name. And I would say in Addis Ababa, I love the streets that we transform on Sundays for Mangadlesa because it's a lived experience and an experiment of actually what our streets can become. And I think it creates possible futures where that doesn't only happen on Sundays, but it becomes part of everyday life.
Great, thank you. I'm sitting in a room with someone from Kigali and she smiled when you said that. All right, let's try Shirley again. Shirley, are you able to hear us?
Yes, Anna, I can now hear you. Apologies for that technical hitch.
No problem.
I'm sharing my screen shortly.
Okay.
So as I share my screen, maybe just a short introduction about myself. My name is Shirley Chebet, and I work with an organization called KDI. We are a non-profit that was started way back in 2016. And that's how long our passion for public spaces and streets have been. And on a personal level, I would say that my passion for streets and public spaces began way back in 2018 when I was involved in the design and implementation of one of the streets in Nairobi, that is Lotuli Avenue. And even though it has since degenerated, at that point, the impact that it was able to deliver was quite promising. especially in the future of our streets. So yes, just as I have said, in KDI, our experience with public spaces goes way back 16 years ago. I have said, and sorry?
Yeah, I think you're good. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, so our experience with public spaces goes way back in 2016, and we are focused on making built environment more equitable and just, and we work with disinvested places around the world. So our work is in slums in Nairobi. We have also other under-resourced areas in places like Turkana, and also we have a lot of our work internationally, New York, Los Angeles, and other areas of the world. And we are a design and build organization. So we do both design and build, but what we pride ourselves most is in our core principles and our process, which is in participation, networking, and integration. And our process focuses on number one, design-led assessment, and we ensure that we engage the community in the heart of what we do, and so we don't impose anything that we implement in the community. We ensure that everything comes from the community, and in that way we are able to ensure sustainability in our projects. So why public space? So public spaces, it's a place that is open and accessible to everyone, regardless of your gender, race, ethnicity, or even socioeconomic level. And that's why we are very passionate about public spaces. And also looking at public spaces in Nairobi here where we work, you'll realize that most of them are being grabbed very fast. And if not being grabbed, they're being underutilized or being put into uses that were not intended for. And that is why we mostly focus our work in public spaces. In terms of access, we focus on issues of social infrastructure, safety, and also ensuring that we provide a healthy environment. That is in terms of running water, decent sanitization, and ability to also withstand climate disasters. So in our 16 years of working in Kibera, so maybe something I haven't mentioned, we have most of our initial work in Kibera, which is a slum in Nairobi, but we have since moved to other areas such as Mukuru, Turkana, where we work within the refugee settlements. But in Kibera, within those 16 years, we're able to design and implement with the community a network of public spaces that have since continued to serve the community in the way that they were intended for. And our most recent kid in the block is the first Kibera Green Street, which is something that we are very excited about because it's a build-up of some of our initial works, and also it's a build-up of not only our design work, but also our other advocacy works. And we are also involved in developing frameworks. And just recently in the Afri-Cities, we were able to launch an inclusive and integrated infrastructure framework for Kenya, which is available for youth and access to the public. And we are in the process of testing out some of the tactics and methods that we proposed in this framework. And you will see when I'll be expounding on our Kibera Green Streets project, which is a build-up of this framework. We were also involved in the development of this handbook for gender inclusive planning and design for World Bank. And this is something that is also available internationally for use in decision making. And in terms of streets, it's been able to inform how people move around, the city, issues of city safety, and issues of also affordability in terms of transport. So this is the site that we are currently implementing, the first Green Street in Kibera, and it's within a way live. And so in terms of the framework that we are testing here, we are testing issues of streets for people, and we are also testing out issues of meanwhile use, since it's within Whaley. And in future, a big bridge will be likely connecting here to the adjacent bypass. So, so this land is not a typical street. It's quite steep in nature, and therefore a typical road cannot be constructed at this place. And therefore, also looking at how roads in Kibera have been designed in the past and what has been implemented recently, you realize that a lot of hard materials are being used, so a lot of concrete. There's also very little participation that has gone into it. And also there's been a focus on gray materials a lot. So what we sought to do with these streets, together with the local government, is to be able to work with the community and design something that the community can be able to use as a public space, as a street, but also address issues of solid waste and sewerage disposal, and ultimately be able to provide an access route that is more accessible even for persons with disability, and also position the community to be able to respond better to issues of urban risks and disaster reduction and response. So in terms of testing out, we're testing out various things. And the first one is in terms of design and implementation, design and planning. And the second one is on implementation and use. And also what we hope to test out with these sites is on issues of governance and policy. So our current level with this project is that we're at the point of co-designing with the community. And we have since been able to actually design with them and be able to come up with different priorities. But of interest to this session is how we were able to engage women. So we had various groups that were gender specific, and also we had groups that were mixed, and various needs came out of this engagement session. And the women, most of the issues that came out from the women's group was on issues of safety, and they were telling us how it's quite unsafe for them at night even to cross that street. And most of them were falling. Since the whole stretch is a sewage, it's like a sewage ditch at the moment. A lot of women and children have been falling into that ditch. There was also issues of accessibility. So women who are disabled are not able to access these streets effectively. Also issues of flooding, issues of solid waste management, and also issues of emergency response. So they were telling us that if a woman is in labor, they cannot, at the lower point of the street, they cannot be able to get to hospital on time because of the nature of that street. So we asked them, then what do you need in terms of us providing with the first Kibera Green Street? And number one, definitely as women, they will think about their children, and they were highlighting a lot of play spaces for their children. Number two is on issues of street lighting, not only for their safety and for them to be able to access facilities at night, but also for nighttime vending. So women at this particular area in Gatwekera are very passionate about generating income, and therefore so they mentioned a lot of commercial provision of a lot of commercial opportunities. Also, the other thing that they require those places where waste could be disposed well and not being directed to the river. The other issue is safe access through provision of ramps and steps, but also thinking about the elderly and the physically challenged, and how do they even hold themselves getting up there? And in case of emergencies, how do they get up there as fast as possible? As well as also green breathable spaces, which are lacking in this area of Kibera. Then thinking about engagement, then how how have we been keeping women engaged in the whole process? Number one is in our mobilization strategy, where we have ensured that there's that social inclusion of women of all nature, that is women of all different abilities, religion, and age. And even in our timing of our workshops, we ensure that we time them in the weekends when women are done with their daily, weekly work and chores as well. So we also agreed on a time that was more respectable of their chores. And that's the time where we carry out our workshops. And then also we, as KDI, we have normalized women in construction and design. So we are a team in KDI, we are a team that is composed of both men and women. And when we go for such meetings, we also demonstrate that women can be able to take part in such planning practices. And therefore, we've been able to encourage them to also come out in large numbers. And through this, also in terms of construction, in our previous works, we have also been able to engage women in the construction process, as well as also we have women committees, women involved in the construction committees, and therefore even the decisions that are being made are quite inclusive. Then also, we've also been ensuring that we enhance women participation beyond design. So what I've already mentioned in construction, and also in management and maintenance of be it this street or other public spaces that we have done. But also